What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Six, presented by Old El Paso. DJ, Bucky, Rhett, we are with you following a Monday night game that was interesting, maybe not pretty, but an interesting game. And I say we don't mess around, we jump right into it because it's time for Monday night recap presented by Old El Paso. Bucky, I will leave you the floor here because there's a lot of different areas we can go on that wild game that saw the Denver Broncos go on the road and knock off the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills and their offense. Just too many turnovers from an offense that has enough weapons and firepower to really be explosive, but you're just seeing too many careless plays, whether it's an early game fumble or the interceptions from Josh Allen. This team is not playing well on offense, and it was really apparent in this Monday night game. This is a game where we expected them to move up and down the field because they playing at home. It's a lot of stuff on the line, and they just couldn't get it together. And we can talk about whether it was the hodgepodge of the scheme, not necessarily matching the personnel, but overall the execution was subpar. And because of that, man, they found another loss, and they are now really trying to figure out how they're going to make a postseason run because the division is out of play.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're sitting here at 5-5 on the season it's a bit of a shock, just considering how good they've been over the course of the last couple of years. Although even you saw some of the slippage on offense last year too, right? With just some of the turnovers and some of the ways that they could inflict mistakes on themselves, and that's kind of where we're at with Josh Allen and the turnovers. I mean, like, we're going back to kind of rookie year Josh Allen right now, where he's leading the league in turnovers at this point. 3 again last night, and it just feels like it's almost like a broken record, DJ. Like, we've been talking about this Bills offense, and every time they lose, we're talking about this offense turning the football over, looking out of sync, like just not having an identity or a rhythm to the way that they want to attack defenses. And I think that's probably why we saw the change in coordinator today with Sean McDermott firing Ken Dorsey and promoting Joe Brady to the offensive coordinator. So maybe that helps get things back on track, because it felt like a ship that had certainly kind of lost its bearings out on the open sea here in the AFC East stage.
Yeah, there's a lot you guys just hit on. I want to touch on it. And I'm going to get to Josh just one second, and Joe Brady taking over this offense, and what does this mean going forward? But I want to start the conversation with this. As bad as that was offensively, the turnovers, all of it, they had the drive when they needed it. They had a chance for this defense to end the football game. They didn't. They get the penalty. They set up the field goal. And even that being said, okay, so the offense's failures you guys touched on. The defense has to get a stop, you win the game. The defense failed. They don't get a stop. And then you go to the sideline, and the sideline failed this team. They had 12 guys on the field on a kick that misses, and they walk out of there with a win. But somebody was asleep at the wheel. Now, whoever that responsibility falls on, it ultimately it comes to the head coach's responsibility. So you can be mad, you can fire coordinators, you can talk about the turnovers. Everybody has had a hand in the somewhat demise, if we want to use that word, of the Buffalo Bills this year. So there's a lot of blame to go around. Now, Josh Allen specifically, I went back and pulled up all of his interceptions. So you go through these 12 picks. This is what I saw. There's 6 of them where he's forcing deep balls. Like, they're aggressively trying to force the ball down the field, trying to do too much. As we always say, Buck, on the show, trying to eat the sandwich in one bite. Like, that's too much. He's late on 2 of them. 3 of them are tips, which I'll take off of his plate, right? You get those are kind of fluky.
Yeah, the one in this
tips,
game,
including one last night. Yeah, went right through Gabe Davis's hands. And then he had one against, I believe, was the Jets, where I didn't know how to classify it. I just classified it as a scramble hero throw, where he's just, he's trying to make some incredible play that results in a turnover. But the big issue, is the 6 forced deep balls. And Buck, when this offense was humming, when they really got rolling and got into a rhythm with Brian Daboll, one of the things that stood out was, man, this looks like a different Josh Allen, because at Wyoming, everything was deep, everything was vertical. And then all of a sudden, they're spreading you out, and it was catch, rock, and throw, and he's getting the ball out of his hands, and then they're mixing in the quarterback run with that. It wasn't as vertical. I think this offense has almost gotten too vertical. And when you look at the receivers that they have, like, who's the true vertical receiver? Like, Gabe Davis really isn't that guy. Stephon Diggs is underneath,
it's
intermediate.
Diggs or bust.
He's one of the best in the league. They don't have that guy. So you're trying to play a style. You don't have the people to do that, and I'm not so sure that's the best way for Josh to play anyways.
No, there are a couple of different things when you talk about the style of play and the personnel matching. If you want to push the ball down the field, then you got to be a dominant running attack. Because if you're going to be a dominant running attack, then you can get one-on-one on the outside, 8-man boxes. You take your shots on isolation routes. If you're going to be a team that wants to spread it out and be in the shotgun, then it has to be a little more of the horizontal, collegiate type scheme that we've seen. Screens, RPOs, quick passes, balls designed to get out of the quarterback's hands and into the hands of the playmakers on the perimeter. That's how this team was built, and that's how they played at their best when Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator. The thing that Joe Brady has to do is he has to sit back and evaluate what was really going well for this offense and how can he put together, a little stack of plays that works for this team and the personnel that's on the perimeter while also accentuating what Josh Allen does well. I don't know if he can fix it all in a couple of weeks, but look, there's 7 games left for the Buffalo Bills. They're going to have to win 5 or 6 of them to get into the postseason. So he is going to have to get this up and going right away.
Well, look, it'll be interesting to see, what happens here with Joe Brady now jumping in as they push this thing forward here and try to get themselves back into the playoff race. I think the experiment in Carolina with Joe Brady didn't work very well. Obviously, you could make some, an argument that they didn't have, all the pieces necessary to make it work. I mean, like, think of the pieces he had when he was at LSU in that record-breaking year, right? Obviously, had the best quarterback in college football and 3 of the best receivers in college football with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then Terrace Marshall. And, it just they were kind of lacking a rhythm and identity in Carolina, where they were kind of turning things over week to week, and it didn't end up working out. So, Joe's been there now the last couple of years. He's been able to see it, see what's gone well with Josh Allen and what hasn't necessarily worked with Josh Allen. So maybe he can use some of that experience here to try to find the best course forward for this offense, to try to maybe take it down from that vertical attack here a little bit and try to find some of those intermediate windows.
Yeah, think about Joe Burrow under him at LSU, empty, right? That was the big thing. 5 out, getting 5 out at all times. Joe Burrow thinking quick, getting the ball out of his hand with those weapons. Now, we'll see what this offense looks like. You mentioned the Carolina experiment. He didn't have Josh Allen in Carolina, so maybe we see more of that LSU style of how he was able to have that success there. I do want to flip it over to the other side of the Broncos here, and Buck, I'll kick it over to you on this one. But we had fun with Sean Payton earlier in the year. They gave up 70, and it was like, man, you probably shouldn't be talking about Nathaniel Hackett, even if if we say he's not that great, and it was kind of the elephant in the room. It was obvious, and we gave him some grief for that. Sean Payton can coach. He's got Russell Wilson. Not only he's got Russell Wilson playing well, he's stumbled back upon the formula, which when you look at it, they ran the ball for a 3.2 average, right? So, man, that's not great. But they ran it 38 times. And how many times have I heard Buck, when we've been doing this show for however long, 10 plus years, Buck, and you talk about attempts, not yards. Like, to me, their commitment to run the football has set Russell Wilson up to be back to who he was, which is efficient, 24 of 29, a couple touchdowns. He's extending plays. He's playing smart. That's the formula. That's always been the formula for Russell Wilson, and I think he's kind of got back to that under Sean Payton.
Look, that's a great observation, DJ. It is the formula, and I think Russell had to kind of relent on the ideal vision of how he thought he should play versus how he really needs to play. 38 rushing attempts is perfect because then it allows you to utilize the play-action passing game because you have to respect the run. That is when Russell's at his best. Also, keeping him on a pitch count. 30 or fewer passes is kind of the right mix in terms of where Russell Wilson needs to be. So I don't know if he can get back to playing at those high levels that we saw in Seattle, but he certainly can play winning football for this team, utilizing the blueprint that Sean Payton has laid out for him.
Yeah, and I think it's been impressive, and it's been quiet, the work that they've done over the course of the last couple of weeks and really over the course of this season. Obviously, the defense had some struggles early on, and they weren't, obviously they weren't winning games, so it's hard to paint a positive picture for anything that they were doing, even offensively. But, you start looking at the cumulative numbers, and Russell Wilson's stacking right up there. Obviously, there were whispers a couple of weeks ago about, Russell's numbers being better than Patrick Mahomes's, and obviously this isn't a typical, explosive Chiefs offense that we've seen, this year as it compares to years past. But I think what you're seeing now is a little bit more of what we saw from the Saints and Drew Brees in those last couple of years. It was, commitment to that run game, and taking care of the football above all else, and getting rid of those turnovers and finding ways, to, hit some play action and that sort of thing. And I feel like they've kind of stumbled upon their rhythm. I don't know if stumbled's the right word, but they've definitely discovered a nice rhythm and a nice identity in the way that they want to work. Kind of the opposite of what we were talking about with the Buffalo Bills, DJ.
Yeah, no doubt. They know who they are, and they know, how to get to the winner's circle. They have the path now. They have the map, I guess you could say, of how they have to play and how they have to win. The defense has been much better as well. All right, let's change gears here, because I want to talk about the first 2 picks in the NFL draft, and the ones wildly successful, as you're looking at him right here in C.J. Stroud. You see the ranks. He is top 5 in just about every single category, including leading in yards per game, touchdown interception ratio. I mean, he's the best in the league among the 33 qualified quarterbacks. So we're going to get to Stroud in a minute. We'll get to Bryce Young, who is selected 1 spot ahead of him, who has not had this good fortune early on in his career. But I want to start with Stroud, and Buck, I'll tee you up on this, because over the years we did the prototype series. Remember when we went through scouting and what you look for at each position, went position by position. And one of the things when we talked about quarterbacks, I mentioned, I always thought poise, accuracy, and decision making, those are the big 3. And then we added on to that after that prototype series, playmaking ability. Like, can you make a play when something's not there, off script, off schedule? Can you make a play? And then we added toughness and / leadership. We kind of put those 2 things together, and those show up on the field as well as off the field. 3 to 7 scale, which we had for the teams I worked for. 5 is average, so 4 below average, 3 poor. 6 above average, 7 excellent. So that 3 to 7 scale. Stroud, what we've seen thus far: poise, accuracy, decision-making, playmaking, leadership, toughness. I don't know how you give him anything other than a 7. As crazy as that sounds, he's at an excellent level at every key metric.
Hey, look, he's been crushing it, and he's been crushing it in a way that many of us didn't expect. For all of the conversation, the negative conversation that came with the evaluation about lack of creativity, didn't utilize his athleticism and mobility until we saw him in the playoff game against Georgia. He has exceeded everything when it comes to even being a natural passer from the pocket. DJ, his touch, timing, and precision, his accuracy on these tight window throws, he does it. And the fact that he's doing it with a cast of unheralded, no-name playmakers on the outside speaks volumes about how good he is. He is better than I think anybody can imagine. And I think if we press the Houston Texans personnel staff and coaching staff, I think they would say that he's even better than they thought they were getting when they picked him with the 2nd overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they knew they were getting, the draft's most pure passer. And we talked about that, a bunch on Path and here on Move the Sticks. And I think that's clear. And they are using his superpowers, which are the accuracy and the ball placement, from, the line of scrimmage to 20 yards down the field and more, right? And he has shown that year in and year out. But what they've also done, I think, is very deliberate, Bucky. And you may characterize some of these players as unheralded and under the radar, but what they've done is they've gone over the top to support C.J. Stroud. Just looking at some of the moves, right, in free agency. This is even before they ended up with C.J. They went and got Robert Woods. They got Devin Singletary, a couple of veteran players to match up with a young group of promising skill players, right, that are already there, and Nico Collins and John Mechie and Damian Pierce at the running back spot. Then they go and they try to fortify the depth up front. They already had two really good players and an elite player in Laramie Tunsil, a good player in Titus Howard that they extended. And then they went and tried to supplement their depth. I think George Fant ended up being one of their better signings. He has locked down that right tackle spot. They went and they drafted Juice Scruggs in the 2nd round to be their starting center. We haven't even seen him this year because he got hurt before the season started, but looked like he was on his way to starting. And by the way, as another one of our themes from yesterday, he had a fantastic Shrine Bowl week in Las Vegas and played really well there. So they ended up catching his eye there, 2nd round pick. They got another center later in the draft. But they keep, and then how about Dalton Schultz in free agency? Like, look at that model.
Yeah.
They have surrounded him with high quality targets. They went and drafted Tank Dell, drafted Xavier Hutchinson, but Noah Brown was an under the radar signing. But that group of pass catchers, Collins, Woods, Mechie, Brown, Dell, Schultz, like, he's got some real weapons there. And they're protecting. I think they could still go out and protect him a little bit more this offseason, but they put some talent around him.
That's a great point. And we'll use that point when we get to Bryce Young here in a moment. But, Buck, I want to tap into your knowledge of CJ going back to when he was in high school, because I'm going to summarize it here. I was hoping you'd give me some examples of this. But when you have young players, a lot of times you have guys who are content with their performance, and they're going to be chest beaters and look at what I've done, look at where I am. And there's others that are growth obsessed. Like this, from listening to your stories about him over the years, like this never one that I would use the word content. Always a growth mindset, always looking to get better.
Yeah, so the best story that I can give you is we were all together at Elite 11. He was on my team at Elite 11. The opening, I had CJ and also had Bryce Young. And one of the things that we incorporated Elite 11 at the time was chess. Seth Mikowski's a renowned chess master, came on board and was teaching all these guys how to play chess and how to kind of do it for mental training. He had worked with Deshaun Watson previously, and so they kind of incorporated that. CJ Stroud became obsessed with the process that went along with the thinking in terms of being a great chess player. And over the course of the weekend, he was able to take some of the techniques that Seth was giving him, not only to apply on the chessboard, he put it in practice when it came to playing the game. And it's 7-on-7, so it's not 11-on-11 real football, but it still mattered. And some of it is like really simplifying the thought process in your mind. And Seth has this thing where he talks about threats and attacks. And so on the chessboard, before you make a move, you should always assess where you're threatened, but then you want to attack where you're threatened. So if you think about in football, where's the pressure coming from? Well, I want to throw right behind the blitz because that's where the vacated area is going to be in zone dogs and those things. So if you can think about turning that, what could be a passive mindset into an aggressive mindset, CJ Stroud has been able to do it. And I think you see it each and every week when he performs in the National Football League.
I love that mentality. And just to add on top of that here real quickly, just, talking to folks going back to the draft process, in that Ohio State program and kind of understanding who he was as a practice player, I think is really important too, because, that's where the growth comes, right? From week to week and from year to year. And he was one of those guys that, had the mastery, right? Especially after the first year in Ryan Day's offense, had the mastery of that system, so much so that he would get a little bored, like during practice. Like, talking to some folks, like he had the call come in practice, and he turned around and he kind of give the side eye to Ryan Day, like, come on, this again? Like, give me something else. Like, put something else on my plate. I'm ready for more. And it's clear that, he has that relationship now, and he is exercising, his full football IQ with Bobby Slowick as OC. And like, it's clear that they are a terrific pairing right now. And he's given them all that CJ can handle. And CJ's showing him that he's ready for more and more and more each and every week.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, they put a nice group around him. You talk about the protection. You've got some speed. You've got a friendly target and a tight end. They've got a creative play caller. They put a lot of pieces in place. But, man, the majority of the credit goes to C.J. Stroud. The work he's put in has clearly paid off, and he's legitimately got a shot to be the MVP as a rookie, which is insane. I got to go back. I want to say Jim Brown was the last time I saw a rookie win the MVP. This is nuts. Even having this conversation is crazy, which is going to make this transition difficult because picked one spot ahead of him is Bryce Young. And Bryce Young, not only was he taken ahead of him, but the Panthers traded a great deal, including a number one wide receiver and a future one, to go up there and get him. And you look at the numbers. Look, Rhett, I'll go to you on this one.
Yeah, sure.
Adam Thielen has been a nice target for him. You see the numbers on here, 79.2% when he's going to Adam Thielen. Everybody else, it's 57.3%. 3 touchdowns to Thielen, 5 touchdowns, 7 picks to everybody else. I mean, Adam Thielen's a nice piece, a good player. But, man, that is, let's start with what's around Bryce, and then we'll get to Bryce.
Sure. Yeah, and I think by talking about what's around him, you talk about the lack of what's around him, right? And that's high quality targets, and that's no disrespect to what's there now. It's just they need more, And I think to expect Jonathan Mingo to come in and be like, a guy, and maybe even the guy at times, is probably expecting a little too much. And, especially when you have the rookie quarterback, to expect that much out of the rookie receiver. Although you can make the argument that the Texans have hit gold there with Tank Dell and with CJ Stroud on that front, but it hasn't worked out that way here for the Panthers. And so, and DJ, I got a little bit of a plan for him, and maybe we can get to that after we kind of assess what we've seen here from Bryce Young. But they don't have a ton of draft resources to go out and do and drastically upgrade this offense, but it's got to be a huge priority. Especially with that third round pick, those high draft resources that they do have, absent of a first rounder this year. They got to go out and make some noise in free agency. And when we come back around to this thing here on how we can solve Bryce, I think what we'll I've got a couple of things to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me, and DJ, we've had this conversation, Ray, you've been including this. I'm a firm believer that when you have a young quarterback, you need to surround him with a veteran wide receiver. When you look at the growth that has happened with a lot of our young guys, they've been paired with older receivers. Think about Josh Allen, how his game exploded when Stephon Diggs came over. I mean, I could talk about Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram and on and on and on. For Bryce Young, there's a comfort level that he has with Adam Thielen because he can depend on Adam Thielen to be at the spot that he's counting on him to be. And so that reliability leads to confidence in terms of letting the ball go and trusting him. They don't have enough of those veterans, those high-end veterans around Bryce Young to really allow him to grow into the position. And so as we eventually talk about what they need to do, I think the number one thing they need to look at is, like, it's great to have young receivers, but young receivers are also trying to figure out how to play the game. They need to have some veterans at those playmaking spots that already know how to play the game so they can make the game easy for the young quarterback.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that here. I want to first talk about Bryce and what he can do better, okay? When you watch them, things stand out. Pass protection's not great, okay? You can freeze it at the top of the drop. There is very little separation. They have nothing vertical. They don't have the speed to get on top. So those things jump out to you. When he does get the ball in their hands, like, you'll see him throw smokes or bubbles. There's nothing after the catch. So you don't have any of those things working in your favor. And because of that, you look at the defense that they play every week, they're playing flat-footed and they drive on everything. We use the term half-court basketball. That's what he's facing every week. His average depth of target is 6.7 yards. Guys that have thrown more than 100 passes, that's 35 out of 36. Only Tyson Bagent is throwing the ball shorter. So there's no threat down the field. Everybody's squatting and driving on everything. That's making his life hard. Now, things he can do to help, at times I think it's maybe a little bit of a factor of who he played with and where he's played with superior talent in high school and in college. He's waiting for guys to kind of get college open. There's times where he's staring. I'm like, dude, just let it rip. I mean, you've got this much separation. In the NFL, that's open. You've got to let that one throw. And he's waiting for guys to really get open, that college open, which is not going to happen, especially with this group. So he's got to get better with identifying NFL open, getting the ball out of his hands. Now, we're going to kind of change and get to what they can do to kind of help him going forward. If I was going to, start, I would say you're looking at a veteran. Buck talks about a veteran. To me, that's the tight end. Get him a stud veteran tight end. They've got tight ends that are okay. There's nobody that moves the needle there. Mm-hmm. They need speed. I don't care if that speed is young speed, veteran speed, any kind of speed. They need some speed on the outside. They need to upgrade this offensive line. And Rhett, to me, when I look at it, you talk about the lack of resources. This is. I don't want to say, people say, oh, you don't throw good money after bad. Don't get rid of the good players you do have. I am. When you've committed like this to go up and get Bryce Young, and you have no talent around him on offense, and you have no first-round pick, I'm sorry. I love some of these defensive pieces, starting with Brian Burns, but I'm taking phone calls on everybody. Yeah. And I'm moving my assets from the defense over to the offense. I'm getting as many picks and players as I can. Apologies to the defensive coordinator, but we can't even evaluate this dude right now. So we don't even know what we have. And we don't have picks. We don't have resources. So sorry, we're going to have to take some of these better defensive players, including one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Brian Burns, and you're going to have to turn that into picks and players to help this offense, because if Bryce Young goes down, this whole ship is going down. So you better figure out a way to help him out. That's where the offseason is going to take them.
Let's start right there then with Brian Burns, and let's identify a potential trade option right there. Now, here's the tricky part. I think one of my favorites comes within the division. You talked about the need for a tight end. Well, the Atlanta Falcons are bottom third right now in pressure percentage. Is there a tight end that they have that is kind of seldom used but has, ridiculous traits? Brian Burns for Kyle Pitts. Maybe there's some draft capital that has to be involved there some way on one side. But I'm telling you right now, you want to talk about, a quick way to upgrade the targets for Bryce Young. Kyle Pitts would certainly represent that. And if you're following the CJ Stroud model, look what Dalton Schultz has done for CJ Stroud too. Okay, so they went out and they committed some big time resources to go out and put Dalton Schultz into play for CJ. And now the Carolina Panthers have the potential to do that. So they still need a big time player on the outside, right? So just kind of looking at 2024 free agents, I think the Panthers are going to be somewhere around $40 million in cap room. They've got some cash there for sure. You're going to have to overpay for one of these top wide receivers. And that's just the nature of, doing business in free agency. Look, I don't know that Michael Pittman is going to leave Indianapolis. I imagine they're going to try to keep him. Feels like a steady, reliable target. I don't know if he solves that kind of need to get separation and find a way to get on top of the defense. But do you think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be able to re-sign T. Higgins? Is that somebody that you might try to go ahead and wave a bunch of money at to go and bring over and show that he could be a number one wide receiver when Jamar Chase has been out? Feels like a guy that I would want to go take a look at there. And then maybe a little bit further down the line, Gabe Davis is going to be a free agent next year. Do the Bills, if the Bills can't re-sign him, is that someone you could target? And then Marquise Brown, if you want to talk about speed, I know he's kind of well-traveled by now, but certainly a guy that can get up and down the field and take a top off of defense. So a couple of target ideas right there, Bucky. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, no, the perimeter pieces are certainly they need to be upgraded. But before we can get to throwing it outside, we got to fix this offensive line. Because if they can't keep him protected, then he is never going to be able to keep his eyes down the field. And so we're talking about beefing up this offensive line and being able to run the football. I know you have Miles Sanders that you brought over, but until they're able to get some push at the line of scrimmage and kind of play bully ball at a point of attack, it's going to be hard for Bryce Young because this team is always in long yardage situation. He's always playing against pass rushers that are lined up in track stances because they know they can ignore the run and come after him. Until they're able to balance out this offense with the running game being a bigger part of it, it's going to be hard for Bryce Young. So yes, we got to get the perimeter in place, but we got to make sure that the interior, the pocket is protected so that he can be comfortable and feel good about, hey, I'm going to be able to throw on these mixed downs as opposed to these obvious passing downs that he's been thrust in right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're going to have an aggressive plan for what they want to do going into the offseason. So, we'll see what it looks like. But to me, it's resources are all going to the offense. Apologies to the defense. We'll try and get that figured out down the road. But you've got to at least have a chance to evaluate Bryce Young. So, again, still half the season left. Maybe we start seeing some strides with this group around him. Maybe he starts taking some strides. We'll keep an eye on it. But this is the kind of conversation we're going to have as we get towards the draft, as we get towards the spring. So just a little teaser for you right there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, it's time for our rookie draft here, which I got to say, I'm a little bit disappointed to see Rhett closing the gap like he is. He had 5 points this week because of Tank Dell getting him a win, and then
3 straight weeks of winning.
Bijan Robinson, yeah, he's done well. He deserves it. Buck got the 3 points from Stroud. I got the 3 points from Gibbs as well as a point from Kincaid. So Rhett is only 1 point behind me. Bucky, we can't allow this to happen here.
It's winning time. This is what I do. This is what I do in November. It's winning time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. He's using up all his gas right now. He'll fade at the end. He'll go back to being who he is. Yeah, we're fine.
Let's let him screw it up. Let's let him screw it up. Rhett, you're up. You get the first pick. You're on a roll. See if you can keep it going here. Who do you got?
Pretty easy to not screw this one up. Give me not only the reality MVP of the league, but the fantasy MVP here on Move the Sticks. CJ Stroud. Easiest number 1 pick I've ever made. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, he is rocking and rolling. I think that was a no doubter. I think I'm going to break. I don't know if this is new, but I don't know. Have we had a running back go over Bijan Robinson in the draft yet this year?
He's on bye this week. So.
After seeing Gibbs,
he's on a bye, so now someone has to go.
After seeing Gibbs in person behind that offensive line, and they actually give him the rock, and they play the Bears, I believe, this week, right? Do we have Lions Bears?
Yes, we do.
We do. Lions at home against the Bears. They'll be protecting a lead, and he'll be touching the rock. So give me Jahmyr Gibbs.
I like it. All right, Bucky, 2 in a row.
All right,
Go ahead,
man,
Buck. You got 2.
Yeah, he's been terrific. So look, I'm gonna have to grab a quarterback, and there's only a handful of rookie quarterbacks that are playing. Let's see if we can fix not Bryce Young. Let's go with Aiden O'Connell from the Raiders. We're gonna take him up there, and then I'm gonna follow it up with Zay Flowers because Zay Flowers is playing on Thursday. Let's do it that.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Aiden
all right,
and
I like
Zay.
that.
Back
I'm
to
gonna
you,
go.
Deej.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let Rhett have the luxury of watching the connection between Stroud and Tank Dell. I'm not doing that.
No!
I'm gonna take Tank Dell here with this pick.
Golly. Come on, man.
What do you got?
right.
What do you got here, Rhett?
Yeah, I got back-to-backs here, I think. So so I'm going to go, Dalton Kincaid's really been coming on, and I think one more catch, and he would have actually gotten the win over Tank this past week, or was it the other way around? I don't know. One way or the other, I'm going Dalton Kincaid as my tight end / receiver this week. I was thinking about Jordan Addison, but man, with Josh Dobbs and the connection that he has found with TJ Hawkinson, I don't know if there's any, and maybe Justin Jefferson on his way back. I don't know if there's any room in the end for Jordan Addison in that offense right now. So I'm going Dalton Kincaid, which means I also need to find my running back this week. And man, this is tough, but I think what I'm going to do is after watching the Seattle Seahawks this week, I think I'm going to go with Mr. Charbonnet out in Seattle.
Little Charbonnet?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Sometimes I like a nice chilled Charbonnet on my NFL Sunday.
There you go.
Give it to me. Lock it up.
Wow. Options left.
I don't love my options here for the quarterback. I'm not going to lie. But I'm going to go. I want to torture Bucky a little bit. So I'm going to go Levis against his Jaguars, so you can see it in person as Levis gets it rolling a little bit. Although confidence level very low, very very low on this one. But that's what I got.
Okay.
Man, I hate to be so dependent on the Baltimore Ravens to think about the running back, but the guy has touchdowns in back-to-back games, and Keaton Mitchell. So maybe I'll just go with Keaton Mitchell and hope that he can
That's a good one.
Put some points on the board.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I'm hoping Charbonnet can get a goal line carry. Yeah.
Oh man, I need Bucky. I need one of us to bounce back. Rhett's on this climb right now. He's going to be in first place next week.
I mean, look, he's all Houston Texans. He's like
fine.
all Houston Texans.
He's been
throwing.
I want winners.
Casting his lot with the Texans. He's casting his lot with the Texans. We got to break that up.
Oh, it's unbelievable. All right, big week though. We'll see how these rookies perform. I feel confidence meter. I'll put my confidence meter, guys, at 60%. 60% confidence meter. We'll see how this all pays out. All right, everybody, DJ, Bucky, Rhett with you here as we look at the Thursday night matchup. Let's get things started right there. This is a fun one. A lot of times on Thursday nights we do these previews. I do it while I'm plugging my nose. Not this week, boys. We've got a good one here. This is the Bengals and the Ravens. Uncle Al has got to be happy about this one. His spirits are going to be picked up. Rhett, you look at this big matchup in the AFC North. Short week for the Bengals coming off of a tough loss, man. And they're going up against a team, and the Ravens might be coming off a tougher loss. So two hungry, two desperate teams in need of a win here on Thursday night.
Yeah, and I think, some of the questions now are just where are the Bengals health-wise? And, how does the short week treat Jamar Chase, who seemed like he, wasn't necessarily 100%. I think it was 50-50 to even play last week coming off that back injury on Sunday night the week before. So where's he at? And can the Bengals offensive line protect against what's been, just a renaissance of a Ravens defense? Makes you think back to the early 2000s a little bit with the way that they've been playing, generating turnovers, and then, getting pressure on the quarterback. So can that Bengals offensive line protect Joe Burrow long enough to deal, and show you some of the stuff that he's been doing over the course of the last couple of weeks? So Jamar Chase's health, offensive line protecting, and can they run the ball a little bit? Like, can they take some of the pressure off, Joe? Can they find a way to get, whether it's Joe Mixon, Chase Brown, or whomever involved in that running game, can you find a way to not have to rely on that right arm almost entirely here in this game? And then for me on the flip side with the Ravens, if you build a lead, can you close it out this week? Can you exercise those demons from a week ago, get back to the ground and pound when you have the lead, and kind of take the air out of the football and the time off the clock?
Yeah, you talk about the Baltimore Ravens. You talk about closing it out. Before I can blame the offense, the defense. This is a defense that is number one in scoring defense in terms of points allowed, but they need to be able to close games out. And even though they lack what we call a marquee pass rusher, they've been able to get it done by committee until these critical moments in games. Can they find a way to close it out against Joe Burrow? You know that the Bengals are a desperate team because they know if they lose this one, man, it puts them so far behind in the wild card race that they may not be able to get into the tournament. So this is one where you need Mike McDonald, this defense, to step up. My eyes are all on this defense from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I don't know how to make sense of the Ravens, guys. I mean, this is a team that's got the number one rushing team in the league. Like, nobody's more equipped to close out a game than the Baltimore Ravens. Why can't they finish these games and close teams out? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It was reckless, I thought, against Pittsburgh. They throw a pick down in the end zone. This week, the pick was a little more fluky in the second half, late in that one. But man, they need to just commit to it and say we're gonna rush out to a lead, throw out to a lead, however you want to do it, mix things up. Once you get in that fourth quarter, put the game away, put the hammer down, run the ball, and finish it. That's the challenge there for the Ravens. And then with Cincinnati, I think Burrow just tried to get a little too big last week. He's at his best when he's confident, but he also, plays within the offense, plays within himself. Rhett, I thought there were moments last week where he tried to do a little too much at that point in time.
Yeah, and I think that, you saw some of the turnovers there that were unfortunate here, kind of thwarted the Bengals' opportunity to get that win over the Texans. But, I think this is one of those games, though, where it feels like it does bring you back to your roots a little bit, and, understanding what's at stake in this division. And as you look at this thing, I mean, you got all these teams, sitting here over 500 in the AFC North. You've got, three of them in the playoff structure with the Bengals, next man in, looking just behind the Houston Texans now based off last week. So I still feel like I trust the Bengals and I trust the Ravens the most. And I know the Browns defense has been great. I still don't know what to expect from their offense week in and week out with the quarterback situation and the injuries to Deshaun Watson. But I still feel like I trust the Bengals and the Ravens the most.
Yeah, Buck, I want to get to you real quick on this one because I feel like this is, if you're watching a NASCAR race and you see two cars that they're jostling for position and they're maybe bumping each other a little bit, and that's the Ravens and that's the Bengals, and then all of a sudden the Pittsburgh Steelers on the inside of the track just kind of go scooting right by both of them, man. Like, that's the team. I'm sitting here going, watch out for the Steelers. They'll ugly their way to a friggin' division championship here.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the old classic slingshot move, hanging in the back end and just shooting around right before you get to the checkered flag. Yeah. That's Mike Tomlin. That's Pittsburgh.
Rubbin's racing,
not
boys.
Ugly, but they find a way to get it done. It's just one of those things that you're looking for. So this is a huge game. It's one that everyone should tune in. This should be a great one to watch.
And just lastly, DJ, I'd just like to say that.
Go ahead, Rick.
Just lastly, I'd just like to say that as the resident NASCAR fan in this bunch, I'm really happy to see you move off your tired cliche of only turning right. So way to work.
He's from North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. You think he doesn't know NASCAR? Literally, he's from North Carolina.
NASCAR in your DNA? Come on.
Yes, I went to school in North Carolina. You have no choice but to understand and follow racing.
And so, Red, you talked about only turning right. It's only left-hand turns. It's only left-hand turns when you're in NASCAR. We're only going.
No. What I'm saying is, it's not only left-hand turns. There's road races.
Oh, I got in trouble for that because the road races.
That's what I'm trying to say. I
got hit on that. Yep,
you guys.
I got hit on that on Gettleman. Yep, nice.
I remember.
All right. We suck at NASCAR talk, so let's move it along.
That's fair.
The AFC, when you look at the bigger picture here, the division leaders, you got the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Jags, and the Dolphins. But then it is a muddy mess, Rhett. You look at it. We've talked about the Steelers. We talk We talk all the time about the Houston Texans and the job they're doing. They've got a legit chance. They're only a game back in the division. They've already beat the team that's in front of them in Jacksonville. So then you've got Cleveland, and then you've got that bunch with 5-4 Cincinnati. You've got the 5-5s with the Colts, the Bills, and the Raiders. When you look at this clump, let's start with the division leaders. Who's vulnerable there? I mean, the Chiefs are not
Jaguars.
losing. They're not going to lose the West. The Jags, go ahead, Rhett. The Jags, you think
it's
are the most
gotta
vulnerable?
be. I mean, like when you look at the way that look at the teams that are right next to each other at the 3 and the 7 right there. I mean, who's playing better right now? I mean, Bucky, you just saw it, and obviously the Jaguars ran into a buzzsaw against the 49ers coming off that 3-game losing streak, and they were not to be denied in that game. But the Houston Texans are playing better right now. CJ Stroud is using the weapons at his disposal better right now than Trevor Lawrence is. And he's taking care of the football better than Trevor Lawrence is right now. He leads the league with the fewest interceptions. So, like, if you're talking about who do we trust the most, and we look at the league's most important position at this point, you got to trust CJ Stroud more than Trevor Lawrence. So if we're talking about vulnerable division leaders, that's where I'm going right there in Jacksonville.
Hold on now. I know I'm supposed to put away my teal glasses, but the team won 5 games in a row before they lost to the 49ers. The sky is not falling down in
I'm not saying it's
Duval.
falling.
They got to get back on track with a win. I'm just saying, they may have some vulnerability, but I'm not going to sit here and act like all of a sudden they're falling apart and the Texans are just going to overtake them. We have plenty of time to see how that plays out. I think a team that could be vulnerable is the Baltimore Ravens. We just talked about their inability to close games out. The fact that the AFC North is the toughest division in football. You have all 4 teams in the division currently holding playoff berths. I think with the exception of the Bengals. The Bengals just fell out. But you have all these teams that are planning to play, and you're right in the mix of a round-robin tournament where they're playing each other. So my eyes on the Baltimore Ravens. As good as they've been, the way they demolished some of the top teams, they're vulnerable because they haven't closed out games, and they gave away 3 games that could come back to bite them.
All right, it's time for Sacks and Quarterbacks presented by Campbell's. All right, we're looking at let me try that one more time. Not looking at quarterbacks, we're looking at It's time for Sacks and Quarterbacks presented by Campbell's. We're looking at players who have the most consecutive games with a sack. And how about at the very top of this list, Boye Mafe, 7 straight games with a sack for the Seattle Seahawks. Justin Madubuike right behind him with 5. The defensive tackle has been impressive for the Baltimore Ravens, followed by some big names. Myles Garrett and the duo there in Miami with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips having 4 and 3. Respectively. All right, let's jump into the guys at the top of this list, fellas, because Boye Mafe, I'm going to take you in the Wayback Machine here. Let's go back to my notes on him coming out of the draft, and then Buck, pick it up on that, and we'll roll. Coming out of Minnesota, he was 6'0", 3'6". He was 261 pounds. He ran 4.53. He had 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl. Go figure, a big Senior Bowl for him. I wrote down he's very violent. He can gain ground. He's explosive. He can close. His feet and hands get a little out of sync. I think that's something he could work with, just marrying those two things up. He's raw. You'll see him crush tight ends. Doesn't have it all figured out yet, but the arrow is definitely up. He was my 31st overall player, and Boye Mafe, the light has come on, Buck, for him in the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, the light has certainly come on. The one thing that you know about Pete Carroll is he loves guys with great instincts and great athleticism, particularly first-step quickness when it comes to his defensive linemen. When you watch Mafe at the University of Minnesota, he had all those things in spades. Relentless motor, great effort, great toughness, and what you're seeing in the Seattle defense, they are allowing him to play and really play free from clutter, meaning, hey, he's going up the field, he's getting after it, he's going. And so when you think about 7 straight games he's been able to knock down the quarterback, the Seattle Seahawks certainly have to be pleased in his progress, and the jump that he's made from his first year to his second year has really been tremendous.
Yeah, and going back and looking at that 7-game streak, I think it started with a game against the Giants, and he absolutely destroyed whichever tackle that the Giants rolled out there. I think they had some injuries in that game, and they were rolling through a bunch of different guys. But even against Evan Neal, I mean, just the quick, efficient, violent hands, and then that closing speed to get to the quarterback. Like, he's not winning. He's not winning all the time, but when he does get free, he gets to the quarterback, which I think is obviously an important quality here. I mean, he's got a rep against Ronnie Stanley a couple weeks ago against the Ravens where he beats him, I mean, in the blink of an eye. And then as he's chasing down Lamar Jackson, gets a hand on him, Lamar gets free. He stays with Lamar. You want to talk about speed? Stays with Lamar, catches up to him 15 yards downfield and makes the tackle. Like, when you got the motor and you have the traits, patience and the tools will come. I mean, I was talking to his defensive line coach at Minnesota his freshman year. I mean, it said they had to start from literally ground zero. They had to start from getting him in a stance, and so to think where he's come from 2019 to now, the way he's playing in the league, it's pretty dang impressive. Great kid. I mean, a guy who was virtually discovered as a football player by running track. So it's pretty neat to see the development of this young player.
No doubt. Going back through the tape and watching this year's stuff, speed to close, they stand him up on the edge. You'll see a nice rip move. He can win with that on the outside. He shows you a little inside counter, which he's added into the mix as well. You'll see a swipe. He's got an up and under. He's winning in a couple different ways. When I was studying him, the explosiveness, the raw athleticism is all there, but he's starting to add some tools to that box. I got to give my friend Mina Kimes some credit here because she actually texted me during the preseason because he was tearing it up in the preseason and was like, man, are you watching Boye Mafe? Like, it looks like he might have taken the next step. So we'll give Mina a little love there, a little shout out for seeing this coming here. Justin Madubuike, playing defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, has been outstanding. Let's go back to his draft stuff coming out of A&M. Buck, I'll get to you here. 6'0", 293, ran 4.83. Again, we're seeing traits, right? Big time speed. Mafe 4.53 on the outside. Madubuike 4.83 on the inside. Strong, versatile. He plays every D-line spot. He's best as a 3 technique. He's got knockback power. He's got strong hands. He plays with outstanding effort. Just needs to put a plan together. He was my 45th overall player, my 4th defensive tackle in that draft class. And Buck, he has been a home run. I think Rhett might have hit on something there, talking about believing in the twitch, believing in the traits, and being patient. And I think you're seeing that pay off here as well.
Yeah, I had a great mentor who always talked about grade the flashes, because if they flash it, they certainly can put it again. It just takes the right coach and then maybe the right scheme to pull it out. And when we think about the scheme, Mike McDonald and what he's been able to do with the Baltimore Ravens, he's basically taken a collection of independent contractors and given them tasks that kind of fit what they bring to the table. So Madubuike, you'll see him use various spots on the line. He does a lot on stunts in games. They will create opportunities where he kind of gets that head start on the move, and that athleticism that he described, because you talked about his traits, that athleticism has enabled him to get to the quarterback consistently. It's one of the reasons why the Baltimore Ravens defense has been knocking people around, particularly on passing downs.
Yeah, and I'm kind of listening to you guys talk about the traits here of an interior defensive lineman. I just saw one that's got all those traits as a 300-pounder at the University of Illinois. And if he comes out this year, I mean, he's going to go a lot higher than Madubuike did. But there's, I think, and then look what Kalijah Cansey did with those traits, right? That athleticism for an interior player, a little bit smaller, right, than what we typically see in there. And then just to close the book for me on Madubuike, you guys know by now I play in an individual defensive player format fantasy football league. I dropped Aaron Donald to go pick up Madubuike and felt really good about it.
Nice.
So that just kind of tells you, again, there's the impact he's having. It does show up in the stat sheet and then goes beyond that as well.
All right, Rhett, answer me
DJ,
this
I
real
always
quick.
feel like Rhett
ahead,
is
Buck.
advertising his fantasy football exploits.
He is.
Because somewhere
Just trying
down
to
the
give
line,
you
he wants to be like a
context.
fantasy football general manager for like his real life job. I think he wants to retire to broadcasting stuff, and he just wants to kind of be celebrated as the fantasy football expert that can make your
make a
team
living
better.
doing that.
Because every episode I feel like there's a testimony to his greatness as a fantasy football evaluator.
Yeah, that's true. Rhett, answer me this question here, because now I'm starting to. This is like I feel like I'm on The Usual Suspects right now, and I'm seeing the coffee mug and the picture on the wall, and I'm putting it all together. Were you calling me after your game to tell me about the Illinois D tackle? And if so, that could have been valuable information. I got to stop declining your calls, man.
It would be nice. I mean, like I felt like yesterday is the first time I've talked to you in 2 weeks. I mean, I sent text, I sent video, I call. I mean, what are we doing over here?
Yeah, I've been playing hard to get, apparently. I got to do better with that. I didn't think you'd have anything useful to offer me, but now selfishly I know that there's some give here. I got to start taking these presents as they're coming my way. That's the music. That's our cue. That means we are done for the day. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Always great to be with these guys. Hope you enjoyed as much as I do. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.